This is Time Out Over Time on the Time Out Over Time YouTube channel. I'm your host, Rick Arsenal. Before we do anything, if you would please get down there in the corner and smash that like and subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Get that out of the way first. Well, I've got a whole stack of papers to get to tonight, and I'll just warn you ahead of time. Tonight's show is liable to be closer to 30 minutes than it will be 20. This in an effort to keep you up to snuff and best informed on what's going on in the world of sports. I will do my level best. Please bear with me. I'll try to get this all in a short period of time. Anyway, here we go. Time Out Overtime is sponsored in part by Frank Beck Chevrolet on N99 between Hillsdale and Jonesville. You know, if it's a new to you vehicle, let the sales professionals at Beck's help you choose the right vehicle. New or pre-owned, Beck's has the top selection in the tri-state area with over 200 vehicles in stock. Stop by and see for yourself, and when you're ready, ask for Russ McMorty, Chris Hodis, Danny Smith, Adam Schaefer, Blake Bryant, Cameron Mincio, or their newest sales professional, Bob Flynn. Yep, that Bob Flynn. And when it comes to servicing that new to you vehicle, the service pros at Frank Beck's can fix it. Any make, any model, Ford or domestic, Beck's can fix it. And if you have a bit of a crunch or fender bender, Beck's Body Shop can put it back together just as good as new. So for all your automotive needs, look no further than Frank Beck Chevrolet on M99 between Hillsdale and Jonesville at 517-849-2886 or on the web at frankbeckchevy.com. Come and experience the Frank Beck difference. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. We're going to start out as we normally do this time of year, getting you up to date on what's going on in the NHL and NBA finals. Both the East and West are in their respective conference finals right now. So looking at the NHL, the Game 1 of the Oilers and Stars starts tonight at 8:30 Eastern Time. I'm picking Dallas in that to come out of the to make it to the finals. I think Dallas will beat the Oilers. Yeah. Anyway, then the Game 2 of the East tomorrow, the NHL East, you've got the Panthers and the Rangers. Panthers shut the Rangers out last night, 3-0. Not a particularly good game for the Rangers. The third goal, of course, was an empty net goal. I'm thinking it looks like the Panthers are going to win that series. They're good. They're pretty darn good. In fact, I think the Stanley Cup Finals will more than likely feature the Panthers going up against the Dallas Stars. Looking over the NBA, Pacers and Celtics game 2 tonight from Boston. The Pacers let one get away from them the other night. They choked down the stretch, blew a lead. So now they're down 1-0. And realistically, I thought that was their only shot at winning this series was to win that Game 1 on the road Tuesday night. And they didn't get it done. They choked. I'll be very surprised if they come back to win the series. Over in the West, last night, the Dallas did beat the T-Wolves 108-105. They leave that series 1-0. I think it'll more than likely be Dallas and Boston in the NBA Finals. And what's it like right now? How do you feel if you're? Wouldn't it be great to be a sports fan in the state of Texas? The Rangers won the World Series last year. It looks like your hockey team is going to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Your basketball team, led by a superstar, we don't know who that is more than likely going to make it to the NBA Finals against the Celtics. And you got the Dallas Cowboys down there too, and you know they're good for a playoff spot. They'll probably lose in the first round of the playoffs like they always do, but these are good times to be a sports fan in the Lone Star State. I guess what I'm getting at. Okay, now that we got the basketball and hockey out of the way, the Tigers are back home tonight after a stinking, lousy road trip, which saw them lose the last four, the last three in Kansas City, getting their butts kicked up and down the yard by the Royals. You know, since the Tigers went 5-0 to start the season, from that point on, they've gone 18-26. Yeah. And quite frankly, the only thing keeping them floating was the pitching, keeping them right about the 500 mark or a few games above. The question about the pitching was, as it was pretty good. Question was, is it sustainable? And I think now we've got our answer. It was not. The pitching was not very good. The last four games of this road trip, especially in Kansas City. Granted, we don't get to see him very often, but Bobby Witt Jr. is he a superstar already in his third year in the league? We thought Spencer Torkelson, who's in his third year now, would be doing what Bobby Witt Jr. is doing now. He's far from that. No. By the way, after the game yesterday, too, A.J. Hinch was asked by Chris McCoskey in his postgame interview of the Detroit News. You had a rough road trip. You're headed home now, back home. Rough road trip. You lost your last four. The team did not look very competitive in this series. Where do they go from here? Hinch, I think he struck a nerve. Hinch was rather perturbed by the question. He took exception to the fact that McCoskey implied the team was not competitive. He insisted that they are every game. All I have to say to that, AJ, and I hate to editorialize here, but all I have to say to that is, if any Tiger fans are naive or gullible enough to believe that they are a competitive team right now, you're probably also going to believe everything Dan Dickerson tells you on the radio, too. Granted, this pitcher for Kansas City yesterday, a left-hander who I didn't know much about. I think he had a no-hitter going into the fifth or sixth inning, career high at 12 strikeouts. Dan Dickerson was talking about him like he was the second coming of Nolan Ryan or something. Look, is it if you're a Kansas City Royal fan, it's great pitching. If you're a Tiger fan, it's bad, stinking, lousy hitting. So which one is it? Well, the most viable answer, I guess, is both. At what point does the offense have to accept some responsibility for not being competitive? And that's another thing. I wasn't aware of the fact, and I don't know if it's the same way with the other 29 teams in Major League Baseball. A.J. Hinch does not allow his coaches to do interviews. Were you aware of that, folks? His coaching staff is not allowed to talk to anyone in the media. And like I say, I don't know if I'm not privy to the information whether or not that's the case with the other 29 teams or not. But AJ, if you're telling me this team is competitive right now, I'm sorry, man. What you're selling, I ain't buying. Because they're not. Let's face it. And anybody that watched that series in Kansas City with half an ounce of brains and knows anything about baseball has to know that they were not competitive. So as it sits right now, I'll give it a little preview of tonight. The Tigers are 23-26. They've got Jack Flaherty on the mound tonight, back home against Toronto. Flaherty is 1-3 with an ERA of 3.79. He'd be going up against Kevin Gausman for the Blue Jays. Gausman has not had a particularly good year. He's 2-3 with an ERA of almost 5, 4.89. The Blue Jays come in here 22-26, just a half a game behind the Tigers. In last place in the American League East, 11 games behind the Yankees. For what it's worth, the Tigers are solidly entrenched now in fourth place in the American League Central, 9.5 games behind Cleveland. Again, the Royals lost more than 100 games last year. I don't know how they turned it around so quickly, but they did. No, no. Well, like I said, since the opening start of going 5-0, the Tigers have gone 18-26. Find it interesting that Dan Dickerson was quick to point that out after the broadcast yesterday, after the game was over. And again, if you have Comcast and you're not getting Bally right now, and you're paying an extra $20 a month for the Bally app, which is a bad app, and you're watching a bad product, as I said the other night, you've got my sympathy. In fact, I canceled my Bally a couple of weeks ago. They sent me an email wanting to know why I canceled. I didn't respond. That should be pretty obvious, shouldn't it? Why I canceled? Anyway. As far as the Lions go, today was the final day of organized team activities in Allen Park. The current session, today was the last day. They have two more OTAs. I went through this the last time we were on. I'll go through it again. May the 29th through the 31st, and one more June 10th through June the 12th. Of course, they've got a mandatory mini camp June 4th through the 6th. Got you caught up too on the preseason schedule. The Giants in New Jersey on August the 8th. The Chiefs in Kansas City on August 17th. And the only preseason game at Ford Field this summer will be against the Steelers on August 24th. I just want to get you up to stuff on that. Apparently, before OTAs started today, too, by the way, Dan Campbell had a rather lengthy list. I think there were like 17 players who are not participating in today's session, either due to injuries or off-season surgery. Like I said, it's a rather lengthy list. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but suffice to say, there were some notable names on there. Among them were the two rookies, quarterbacks that they drafted, Turion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. Nickelback Brian Branch, safety Kirby Joseph were also out, making for a pretty thin secondary. Didn't get much of anything done today in Allen Park, with most of those guys being out. Brian Branch, incidentally, was seen at the draft last month in Detroit with a walking boot on his left foot. In fact, his whole left leg was on a scooter, obviously to keep the weight off. The Tigers, the Lions aren't saying much about it. I would assume he'll be ready for the start of training camp in late July. But they've been pretty tight-lipped about it. They're not saying much of anything at all. There are, to me, in these OTAs, there's a battle for what I'm looking at in these OTAs right now is a battle for what I'm looking at, like I said, three positions, three spots on this team. And I'd like to review that and go over that with you today. The first one is a position battle between Sione Vaki and Craig Reynolds and Zonovan Bam Knight for the third running back. The last couple of years, it's been Craig Reynolds behind David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. It's hard to go against Sione Vaki in this one, since the Lions did trade up to get him in the fourth round, and he has so much versatility. But there's no way Craig Reynolds and Knight are just going to lay down and let Vaki take that third running back spot. It's also possible Brian Holmes and Dan Campbell, albeit they've never done this before in their 3 years here, they could carry on that final 53-man roster. They could carry four running backs too. I doubt it, But I just bring that up because it is a possibility. But right now, there's a battle for the third running back spot. And like I said, I have to give Sione Vaki. That's going to take some time getting used to saying that name. They're going to have to hit Vaki, the fourth round pick, who they moved up to get. Battle between him and Craig Reynolds and Bam Knight for the third running back spot behind Montgomery and Gibbs. And again, given his versatility and the fact that they traded up to get him in the fourth round, I would have to give the nod right now to Vaki. The second position battle is the fourth wide receiver. Of course, the top three right now are, if you'll pardon me for just a minute while I get a swig of water here, is the only way to get through this, folks. For me to wet my whistle here. Just a minute. Please bear with me. I'm almost done. We just got a few minutes left here. The second position battle is for that fourth wide receiver. A top three right now in the pecking order, of course, are Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Khalif Raymond. In fact, I might put Khalif Raymond right now ahead of Jamo, make him the number two receiver, Jamo the third receiver. So number four is between Donovan Peoples-Jones and Antoine Green, the seventh round draft pick last year out of North Carolina. Someone has to assume that role of the departed Josh Reynolds. And Donovan Peoples-Jones has the edge right now since he's already shown that he can take on a heavier workload. But Green has a chance to show what he can do, starting with these OTAs. We'll see if he can put his size to work. He's 6'2", got a good frame. He's fast. If he can show he's got the ability to pull down a contested catch and get some separation, he has a chance to move ahead of Jones, especially since Jones has struggled in his career getting any separation in the past. It's a bit of a long shot right now, but Green has a chance of being a big part of this offense this year. And I'm sure he'll see a lot of action in preseason. Like I said, he's got good speed. It would not, right, again, in this, if you asked me today, I'd have to give the edge for that fourth receiver spot right now to Jones. But don't count out Antoine Green. He's got a shot. Again, it's a very important preseason for him and training camp to show what he can do. But right now, I would have to give that number four receiving spot to DPJ. The third and last position battle right now in this session of OTAs is for the third tight end. Of course, the first two are Sam Laporta and Brock Wright. So the battle royal right now is for that third spot, and that's between James Mitchell. Third-year guy, time goes by so fast. Would this be his third year out of Virginia Tech? I think it is. Shane Zylstra, Shane McKeon, and Parker Hess. They all have their own strengths and reasons for why they could make this team. This is a really under-the-radar battle, but one to watch for sure. And again, these names are not household names, but after Laporta and Brock Wright, I put Mitchell number one on that list, but I think it's between right now, you'd have to say it's between James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra. The Lions did cut him last year, but they brought him back. So, anyway, like I said, the other 29 teams are also going through their OTAs this week. And I think it should be duly noted here that there are some pretty notable names missing from camp, from their respective teams' OTAs this week. And just to throw a few of these names by, because you're familiar with them, Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver from the 49ers. He's not at OTAs. Justin Jefferson is gone, nowhere to be seen for the Vikings. T. Higgins of the Bengals, he's not at OTAs. Cameron Hayward of the Steelers. Courtland Sutton of the Broncos. These guys are all missing in action. None of them are there. They're veteran players, not at the team's OTAs, but I understand that they're not voluntary. But it's always a show of good faith if you show up there and work out with the rest of the team. The front office would like to have you there. Bottom line, and this is the guys the names that I just recited, they don't want to get paid. Obviously, money is an issue there. And I especially Justin Jefferson, after he saw the contract that Amon-Ra St. Brown's side, how much is he going to want? $60 million a year. That's I don't know. Anyway, too, in Wisconsin, Matt LaFleur, in his initial press conference the other day at the Packers OTAs, had a couple of interesting things to say in regard to his team. I'd say these are some issues right now with the Packers. Apparently, LaFleur is spent a lot of time talking about Christian Watson's hamstring. If he can get through training camp, okay, we'll see how it goes. I think, what's the big deal about Christian Watson's hamstring? I'll get back to that in just a minute. Also, a former Packer linebacker by the name of Devondre Campbell, who was in San Francisco right now. The Packers cut him last year for salary cap reasons. He had some rather candid things to say about life in Green Bay and how thankful he was that he was in San Francisco and his career's been revised. And, he had almost given up football playing in Green Bay. What's that all about? Lost his love for the game, in fact, is what he said. When he was with Green Bay, he lost his love for the game. And he thanks the good Lord, he's with San Francisco now and he's out of Green Bay. What does that tell you about Matt LaFleur and his coaching staff? Anyway, so I mentioned LaFleur talking about Watson's hamstring issue like it was chronic. So I got to thinking, is there such a thing as a chronic hamstring issue, or can it be a chronic thing? So anyway, I did some Googling on that, and here's what it came. My question to Google was, is there such a thing as a chronic hamstring issue? And this was their response. Yes, there is. Hamstring injuries can become chronic if damaged tendon doesn't heal properly. Chronic hamstring tendinopathy, also known as chronic high hamstring tendinopathy or proximal hamstring tendinopathy, is a condition that can cause deep pain in the buttocks and upper thigh. It can be caused by a previous tendon tear that didn't heal properly, or chronic tendonitis, which can lead to degenerative changes in the tendon. It goes on to say hamstring injuries can occur from high-speed running or excessive lengthening of the hamstrings. Normal recovery time for hamstring injuries is 6 to 8 weeks, but they can sometimes last for months or years. Hamstring injuries. That sounds chronic to me, which is kind of the way Matt LaFleur was talking about Christian Watson. Pardon me. And let's face it, Christian Watson being gone, then that Packer offense is not the same without him. I thought I could get by without another swig of water, but I'm going to go for it again. Bear with me here. Boy. Anyway, getting back to hamstrings. 6 to 8 weeks, but they can sometimes last for months or years. Returning to sports before the injury is fully healed can lead to more severe injuries. Some non-invasive treatments for chronic hamstring tendinopathy include rest, ice, heat, stretching. Anyway, we found out everything we want to know about hamstrings right there. So we know now that yes, chronic hamstring injuries can be a problem, a lingering problem, and they can be chronic. So I would say the Packers have some significant issues there with that. Are we done? We pretty much handled everything. I think already September the 8th, the Rams-Lions game, the Lions have already been installed as 3.5-point favorites. Remember, Aaron Donald is gone. One more thing I want to say, too. I neglected to tell you when the schedule came out a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't even thought about this until somebody brought it up. The Lions are playing indoors in 14 of their 17 games. The only games out in the elements are in Chicago, Green Bay, and San Francisco. That's a decided advantage for the Lions because it's no secret. Jared Goff is much more effective indoors than he is outdoors. So before we leave, too, I'd like to put in a good word for a good man who, without his help and cooperation and assistance, I wouldn't be able to do this right now. Tim Lindley at Quality PC and his assistant, Zach, are the two most knowledgeable technicians in our area, and we are so grateful and lucky to have them in our midst. Would be anything involving tech issues, computers, new or used, or maybe the computer you have now needs a little bit of work done on it. If you just bought a flat screen TV and you need it mounted and programmed, maybe you dropped Xfinity from your internet service, and let's say you're switching over to T-Mobile, which what I did. I didn't know anything about installing that. Tim did a very good job on that, and I thanked him for it. Anything he can take care of, printers, new or used. And he's a very busy man these days because he's much in demand. That should tell you something about him. He's also a very nice guy, too. So is Zach, who works for him in the shop there. So, yeah, they're at 37 Waldron Street in downtown Hillsdale. That's about 150, 200 feet west of Howell Street. You can call them at 517-610-5372. Or better yet, get in there and see him. And when you do, tell him Rick sent you, will you please? Okay, I'm done. That's about it for now. Again, we're on 3 nights a week now, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, provided I have a voice and I'm not sneezing. Saw something on the news last night. Apparently, I'm not the only one having these issues, and it's due mainly to the fact that we had such a mild winter, and now we're paying the price for it big time. So, anyway, if you're going through the same thing that I am right now, you've got my sympathy because this is not a very pleasant thing to handle. But we make the best of it. Don't forget every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 here locally on 92.1 WCSR FM, 92.1. Time Out with Andy Brown. And I will talk to you again on Saturday night. So until then, treat everybody with respect. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.